Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. We are happy to be here today and that both of us can be heard and seen. At least we hope so. If there's any issues, please let us know. Um, we've had a few technical issues the last few weeks, so super happy that we seem to be better today. Hello, Fogo Fogo. And
we're being said hi to both of us, so it looks like it's okay.
Technology is working. Woohoo! Okay,
Yay.
awesome. Thank you. So I'm Tamis Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy. I am an energy healer, an intuitive. I'm a galactic ambassador, Celtic shamanic high priestess. I help people find their way on their spiritual journey. How about you, Jen?
Yeah, I like that. Let's see. A journey with people. We go for it. We journey together. I'm a registered psychotherapist, a certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach, and I do energy work, energy play, energy
stuff. We do stuff.
Yeah, and happy to be here with you all.
Yeah. So, we've had a lot going on in the energy, which, we've had I don't know, in the last little bit, we've had, 6 planets or something in retrograde for a little bit. I think we're out of that now. I think there's only 3 now, but it's a lot.
It's been a lot.
Pogo says spiritual Sherpas. Yeah. So we had the Lionsgate portal last week, which we didn't talk about all that much because we had our technical issues and all that. So in terms of that, it was quite a ride. We have finished that energy now, so we're moving into calmer waters, so to speak. We still have all these retrogrades. What do the human design transits look like for this week, Jen?
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle of one right now. So from the 12th to the 17th, so kind of right in there. But we moved into gate 4, which is actually in the ajna. So in our, it's a little different in human design than it is in the typical chakra system. It's in our kind of, how we think about things and how we kind of sort through our understanding of things. And so this particular gate is kind of the gate that looks at the fear of chaos, right? And so it's really the gate itself is the gate of formulation, and it gives us that drive to want to find answers. But it's not just like any answer, right? It's this idea of we have to find the answer, right? And so when we're looking at it from the Gene Keys perspective, the shadow side of this can become intolerance, right? So we're looking at that part of us where it's like, no, we have to find the answer. It has to be this way. So we really want to be mindful of understanding when maybe we get stuck in a negative belief pattern, or we get stuck in a particular way of thinking. And sometimes we might even find ourselves like trying to get other people on board with that negative way of thinking.
No,
so
we don't do that, do we?
Just being really
humans do that? No way. Sorry. It's so human, right?
Yeah, just being really careful if we find we find ourselves going down that path, right? Because the gift side of it really is understanding, right? And moving past this kind of base desire for, having to figure out that one way, and beginning to, allow space for a deeper understanding, right? It's not just, this kind of, okay, I figured out the way. It's like, oh wow, like there's a couple different ways I could look at this, and oh, okay, like maybe this could work or that could work, and there's, possibilities here, and it allows us to kind of flow, right? We talk about that idea of getting into flow, and what does that mean, right? And we can kind of feel into things a little bit more and flow with them, and that can actually move us into. It's interesting that the siddhi for this gate is forgiveness.
Mm.
And that's such a beautiful thing, right? Because when we think about opening space for flow and for harmony, a part of that has to also be forgiveness,
Yeah.
right? And not
Yeah.
just for everything around us, but also for ourselves and for that rigidness and that intolerance that we've held in our experience,
Yeah.
right? And so how do we, allow space for that, and really, opening to, allowing, possibilities in our experience, and recognizing that, we can we can be correct, or have a right way, um, without that rigidity,
Hmm.
right? And we can find validity
Yeah.
in our experience, with a deeper understanding, in harmony, and without having to be, so rigid in our understanding. And I think that, if we can recognize that fear of chaos that can come from maybe opening to too much, right? And all, we can begin to find that balance and that harmony in our experience. And so just be mindful of that if that's coming up for you this week, and see if you can kind of maybe take a step back, and recognize, maybe where you are being really rigid, and is that necessary? Can you maybe take a step back and see the bigger picture, and see if there is, another possibility, or is there some other way of looking at it, instead of kind of, going at first, this is how it has to be.
Yeah.
Can we really take that step back, and see things from another perspective, and then hold space to kind of, forgive ourselves for maybe having to have having to have it a certain way.
Right. And we all have our stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
we can get really rigid in one area and be totally in flow in another.
Hmm.
So it's not a everything all or nothing kind of thing. It's something that we certainly have, and I think it has to do with our programming and stuff as well, right? Like if there's something that was drilled into us, that it's this is the reality, and really it's all perception. So if it's drilled into us that that's what the reality is, then we tend to feel that we need to do that to others, even though
Yeah.
where did that reality come from? It's just from programming, from family, from media, from whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, right? Like, when we get into like the circuitry and all of that, there's this whole thing about, how we develop our theories and all of that kind of stuff. And so getting into like the mind piece of it, right? Like, we develop these theories in our mind. And what ends up happening, and actually I think we were talking about this on the weekend, uh,
yeah,
before, but we very rarely challenge our own ways of thinking, right? So we
right.
come up with a theory about something, and then we tend to ask questions, not to disprove our theories, but to prove them, right? Hey, Michelle. And so,
There's
we
Michelle.
have to be,
Hi.
really mindful of the fact that we tend to always look for ways to prove what we think, as opposed to disprove what we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, if we're looking at that kind of intolerance piece, or we get very set in our mind that something is a certain way, if we're always looking to prove that, we're going to try to find ways for that to be the way it is, and ultimately we find it because that's what we look for. Right? So just
Right.
be mindful of that in our experience, and see if we have a negative belief and we try to disprove it, you know does
What does that
something
look
change?
like? Yeah.
What does that look like? How does that show up for us?
How does it feel?
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes, if we're challenging ourselves, it can feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing to challenge
Mm-hmm.
your beliefs. But it can be unsettling because chaos can feel unsettled, right? And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
okay. That's okay. So, as per our usual, folks, we will be choosing a card from here, The Soul's Journey by James Van Praagh, for a topic for our discussion today. And I want to say a big hello to everyone out there watching. We have quite a few there that are lurking. Maybe
Say hi.
some are work lurking. I don't know. So let's pick a card. Whew, I just had a bunch of people come in because I get tinglies all of a sudden. Oh, this goes really well with my topic for the event tonight. So I'm having an enlightenment evening in person tonight. And yeah, this is like the opposite of the enlightenment evening. My enlightenment evening is all about love tonight. And we're going to talk about fear.
Oh, my.
So Michelle says, yes, chaos keeps us all in business. There's always something to fix. True. I mean, yeah. I guess that is that's truth. Yeah, definitely. But we all have this. And this is one of those things that we try to fix, fear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It is, isn't it, Michelle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we fear the chaos. It's so funny. Up in my kitchen, I have a sign. And like those stay calm kind of signs.
Stay calm and carry on. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, stay calm and accept the chaos.
Yes. Yes.
Like there are certain, I think, and I talk about this, with clients, and we talk about it on the show and stuff like that. This perception that we have of control.
Oh, we don't have control.
Like there's things we have control of, and they're all
inside.
Right? There's very little that we have control of, right?
Yes.
On the rest of the thing. And so, when we talk about the chaos and stuff, it's interesting, right? We talk about, earlier today, we were talking about some things that, I was working through, and, and Tannis was like, oh, you've been maybe with attachment stuff. I'm like, no, it's control.
It's
I have to let go of the control. It's always control it comes down to, right? And when it comes to fear, so much of it also comes down to not having that control, right? I fear what's going to happen. I fear how it's going to turn out. I fear what's,
the uncertainty. We fear the uncertainty
of, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we just think we have control. We really don't.
Yeah.
So I like the way the mantra on here is written. It says, I realize that I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Read it again for us, please.
I realize that I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love.
I realize I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love. Mm-hmm. I love it.
It's a beautiful card. And it's got both ends of the chakra system, right? So you've got your purple for connection and you got the root for grounding because it's red and purple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Somebody did an acronym for fear. I know there's the common one for failure, but I thought there was one for fear as well. I can't think of it now. Anyway, it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
In chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. Carl Jung. This is why I love tracking the planets. Yeah.
Beautiful.
No doubt. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kaylee says, I think this ties into vulnerability, fear of showing your true self to others to receive complete love. Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Because one thing, yeah, I think that's a lot of people.
Mhm.
A lot of people have that. I think the fear of being judged is huge, and it's just getting bigger and bigger because of things like cancel culture and all of that sort of stuff is just really bringing it out to the forefront. And the big part of that for me is that there's a when we this cancel culture thing, I get the concept, and I'm not advocating for any of that kind of behavior. But there are times when people are judged and they've made a mistake
Mhm.
and they get judged harshly for something that, you know, that person could have done too. Like it's a human error, you know, because we're here to learn mistakes. We're here to go through those things and learn from them. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't have consequences. That's not what I'm saying at all. I mean, that's part of the learning process is to have the consequences and stuff. But I
Mhm.
think that it's important for us to. So when we talk about the Kabbalah, for instance, when we're talking about justice in this context, it's about course correction, right? It's about learning.
Mhm.
Um, Providing justice to someone can be about teaching. Whereas, as opposed to sometimes what we have in our society right now becomes more of a vengeance, or one-upmanship sort of thing, as opposed to this compassionate view of I'm teaching you that what you did doesn't go very well with the rest of the society, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just feel that compassion needs to play a role
Yeah.
in that system, because in the spiritual system, justice is not vengeance, it's learning.
Yeah.
At least that's what my teachings are. And if we look at unconditional love doesn't mean you accept when somebody's done something wrong. It just means that you'll always love them, and you can love them from over there. Right? You can still have unconditional love. So what does that mean? I mean, that's going to be part of our discussion tonight, I think,
Mhm.
in terms of our gathering tonight. But
Yeah. But we can live in the energy of love, and we can still confront. Like, I think that we often think of love as, this wishy-washy kind of energy that, is just kind of gets walked all over and doesn't have any power and all of that. Love is so powerful, and it is strong, and it
absolutely
can
stronger than
separate,
anything.
it can have all of those things. And so, I think that it's really important to recognize that, love is brave,
Yeah.
and love can stand up and say, I'm not okay with this.
Hmm.
But love also can hold place for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And love can also say, I recognize what it is to be human.
Yeah.
And love can set aside ego. And love can allow for somebody to mess up. And love can set a boundary and say, I'm not going to have that in my energy anymore.
Hmm.
And I mean, love can do things that we don't think we can do.
Well, in other words, in that in your if you're looking at it in that context, right? Fear is what gets in the way of being able to put boundaries. Fear is, if you look at like a whatever, like a toxic situation, toxic relationship or something, sometimes the person is sitting in a place of fear of
Mhm.
abandonment or something, when if they sit in the love of it, love for self, it becomes love for the other as well, because you're setting boundaries so that it's a healthier relationship. I'm sure
Yeah,
you see that with your clients. I've seen it with mine, in terms of that. So I think, the term tough love is kind of an important aspect of this as well. It's still love because you are doing it with compassion. You're not, and I think when we think about course correction, we're not doing it in a way that has, that beats down someone's ego, right? When you're putting up a boundary, you're not discrediting the person. You're not going in and saying you're a so-and-so or whatever. You know, you're just saying, this is my boundary. I don't accept this. And that's being compassionate, as opposed to the way of approaching that without compassion would be more like,
Yeah.
and, you know, swearing obscenities and calling names and all that. So I think that's in terms of, you know, that kind of relationship. Is that, does it,
Yeah.
that
Well, I
ring
mean,
true for you?
like what Michelle said, right? About say, sending a goodbye letter to a family member, it is incredibly an emotional process, right? And, to come to a place where we recognize that we have to let somebody go, right? But doing it, not out of anger, not out of spite, not out of vengeance, not, out of hatred, but doing it truly out of love. Love for
Mhm.
ourselves because we need to set that boundary and say, I can't do it anymore. And love for the other person because we recognize that we're not good for each other. This can't keep happening anymore. It's a really, really hard thing to do, and kudos to you, Michelle, because it takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength to get to a place to be able to do that, right?
Absolutely.
It's really, really hard, right?
And
And it takes, exactly what the card said. I realize I am testing my resolve to live in the energy of love. We have to work through that fear,
yeah.
right? To come to being able to be there to do that,
Mhm.
right? In
This
that
is this is what an amazing community we have. Look how much
Mhm.
support is coming through here, right?
Yeah.
Look at this. You guys are awesome. And
Mhm.
we've got here, we missed a few comments. That's why I'm kind of going back to that.
Yeah, yeah, no, go for it, go for it.
If we fear to leave the cave, we can never see the world. Exactly.
Mhm.
Right. And Michelle says, true.
Yeah.
The older I get, the more chaotic life seems. They've
Mhm.
changed a lot in the 10 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kaylee said, I completely agree. The world has turned to criticism, not compassion first.
Yeah.
Hi, Annie. Hey, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, love has helped and saved me many times as well.
Mhm.
It's a strong force. Um, oh, we do have the best chatters.
Most definitely.
Hey, Gerald. And
Yeah.
Gerald is on our show next week. So stay tuned, guys. Um, that's going to be exciting. We
Mhm.
always get out our Twillow Talk tiaras,
Oh,
as
yay.
as Fogo Pogo has called them. Oh, you guys have been busy together, have you?
Awesome.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
That's community. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, there's a saying that comes to mind, and I've used it a couple times recently. But the saying, if you have the choice to be right or be kind, choose to be kind, and you'll always be right.
Yes.
And I think we get into those moments of having to prove our point, or feeling like we need to be heard, or we need to be validated, or we need somebody else to just understand. And I think sometimes we have to just say, okay,
Hmm.
okay.
It's like, choose your battles, right? Is this really one you really want to
Hmm.
do?
Yeah,
Like, sometimes it's much, and sometimes you get much more with honey than with vinegar, right? That
yeah,
was one that I always went with as well.
yeah.
Here.
But in that moment, when you realize, what, with this particular relationship or in this particular dynamic, I'm always kind of going, okay, you know what? Okay, whatever. Then we begin to realize, okay, maybe this is not the energy of love, and this is not where I want to continue, right? To put that energy,
Yeah. And
right?
and feeling into it is this fear. What is the fear?
Hmm.
Getting into that deep fear. That's and
Yeah,
figuring that out.
yeah. But I
So,
think sometimes we stay in things because we're afraid to walk away,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, so apparently our last episode was number 50. Yay! Thank you for keeping track for us.
Was it? I thought we had already gone past 50.
Did
That's
we?
awesome.
Well, I guess we've got 50, 50 posted. That must be
Oh,
it.
nice.
So, yeah. Yeah. Happy anniversary.
Woohoo! That is
If we can call it
exciting.
that. And then cake, balloons, and fans. Yeah, I don't have a fan yet. Oh, yeah, 50 uploads on on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no fan yet. Expressing your authentic self with love and kindness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we've had some fun times for sure. We had Gerald at cake. Awesome. Annie says happy anniversary.
Aw,
Thank you. Thank you.
yay.
We've had awesome guests. We've had wonderful topics along the way. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, and it's wonderful to see the community and have you guys be a part of it. It's just I'm absolutely blown away by, how it's grown and built and having you all on. I just love it and I look forward to it.
Me too.
Really.
Me too.
Mhm. And it's funny,
Awesome.
we talk about fear, right? In this testing my resolve and, to live in the energy of love. And that's what this whole, thing was
Mhm.
testing my resolve to live in the energy of love and being able to really put it out, and say, okay, let's do it. And let's walk, through the fear and allow ourselves to, be seen, and share who we are and connect. And it's been awesome.
It has.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Gerald.
Oh.
It's beautiful.
That is
Gonna
amazing.
make me cry.
I know. I mean, I was supposed to.
That's why we do it, right? Thank you, Fogo Pogo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. We hope to just put a little bit of light in people's day. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
But yes, it was definitely a test. Getting out there and being authentic. But when we set out to do this, we said, okay, so let's do this authentically, because we were going to just tape them and then we were going to edit or whatever. And when we first started, that's what we did.
Well, we didn't even edit it though, because we talked about it and then we were like, I don't know how to edit videos. You know how to edit videos? Put it out there.
Well, if there had been something super major, then we might have, not done it.
You're so not tech savvy anyway that the whole idea of even doing that was like, never mind.
Yes. It was a big learning curve, guys, to learn how to use Restream and all the editing, because I do editing, video editing and stuff now, but I didn't at the time. And yeah, so it's been quite a learning curve, let me tell you.
Yeah. Well, and with the recent technology issues, it was so funny because I was like, we'd get on and neither of us knew which one of us was going to show up. Happen. And I was like, I think there's a video live of me online going, I
think there is, yeah.
Okay. All right. Sorry, we are so off topic now.
No, because that's what we're afraid of, though. We're afraid of the judgment, right? And that was the big test of coming on and trying to be authentic.
Well, and it's funny, right? Because we talk about fear and it's interesting how like things evolve over time too, right? Like in the beginning, those are definitely things that were huge fears.
They were.
And now it's like, yeah, it happened.
It
Oh,
happened. It's
well.
out there. This is me. This is
Oh,
us,
well.
right? This is our show for today.
Yep.
It's a real step into that, like we were talking about earlier, the detachment thing, right? When you detach from sort of the outcome of stuff, you do it for the process. It becomes, yes, this is true. We're going to go back to that other comment, but we have to put this there. So,
That's Jen's listening, like,
yeah, exactly.
don't you dare stop and
It's all good. We don't want any more glitches today. We're good. Everything is good today. We are
yeah.
having a good tech day. So yeah, it's been a ride. But you know, when you detach to the outcome, so we weren't connected to the outcome of the shows. I mean, we learned to detach from the outcome of the shows. It was more about let's just go through the process and see what happens. And
Yeah.
like, you know, so we never come on with any plan, as you can tell. We just pick it on screen and we jump right in. And you know, some days that comes with a little bit more like if you're not feeling like, you know, because let's face it, we're human. We have our days where we're not on or on worthy. And so we have to kind of bring it, whether we're up to it or not. And that's not being inauthentic. It's just trying to show up and be here. And those days, I always worry that, you know, I'm not gonna oh dear, sorry. We're getting these funny comments, so I'm going to share them on the screen because they're just too funny.
Oh, it's funny. There was one, Tanis and I both happened to be making a face at the same time, and somebody sent us the screenshot of it, and I was like,
Oh my
"Oh,
God, it was funny.
I am sure that if somebody decided to go frame by frame, it would be hilarious because we are
Well,
both so expressive
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and neither of us hold back. So I
no.
am sure it would be somebody could make quite the
It'd
reel
be
if
like,
they decided to. Not that I'm encouraging any of you to. I'm just saying.
we're not supposed to put it in their head, I don't think. That's the whole point.
Never mind. Delete, return, revise, rewind, whatever.
Clear, cancel, delete.
Okay, and back to topic.
Okay, so if we want to go back to topic, Fogo Pogo had a very nice comment
Yeah.
that she wanted to bring forward.
Yes. Speaking of crying, fear of showing emotion in the world we live in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Seen as being weak or a snowflake. Yeah.
And yet,
But snowflakes are beautiful and individual and amazing. So true.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best part about being authentic because there's no two Jens. Well, name, yes. Person, no. There's very few Tanis's, so but I have actually met 3 in my life.
Well, I mean, Jen, I'm sorry, in my grade growing up, there was like half the class was named Jen. I don't know what it was about the
It
end of the
was
70s.
I think there's always a name that's doing that. It just depends on the year and whoever the soap opera star is of that time, right?
Hey,
It's often soap operas. Well, I'm not so sure if it's soap operas now, but probably Netflix stars or something.
yeah.
But
But truly, right? This kind of fear of showing emotion, I think that we really do need to, be mindful of what's coming up for us,
mhm.
right? Because there's going to be, they say the haters. Like, there's going to be people out there who don't like us.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Okay.
I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And it's okay. And there's going to be people who, are just they're going to make faces, and there's gonna be people who are gonna have their thing, and there's gonna be it is what it is, and we can't we I mean, we can live in fear of how they're all gonna be and how they're gonna respond and everything else, but we can't, you know, constantly be checking ourselves against what we think everybody else is thinking unless we wanna drive ourselves absolutely batty.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to say I was much worse for that in my younger years. And if I was doing what I'm doing right now, I and still feeling that way, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing these days.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be in me. So it's wonderful when you can walk through and get to the other side of that. And I'm not saying I don't have my days where I like freak out about going on, and it depends on. So I do a lot of different podcasts. I'm never really concerned about this one, but when I'm on somebody else's, then I might be a little more conservative, maybe we'll say, depending on the show.
Mhm.
And when you look at it, that's really fear-based in many ways, right? So we all have those niggly things. The more we can sort of get experience and work through it, I think the easier it is. So Gerald says, I think showing up and being vulnerable and sharing how you feel in the moment is a wonderful boundary for your overall well-being. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm not going to
Yeah.
hide how I'm feeling. Yeah, I
Mhm.
can't. I've been told many times I can't hide how I'm feeling. So, by default, people know how I feel, but that's okay. It served me well. So that's okay. And, Michelle says, the first time I went on live was by accident, no makeup, lighting, etc. I scrambled to delete it, but a few people managed to catch it. And apparently Michelle and I have over 100 shows. That's awesome. And we deleted the first one because there was technical
Oh,
issues.
wow.
Yeah. It's a learning curve. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just did that, Gerald. It took me over 6 months to tell the other person how I felt. Now it's finally out. But man, it was difficult. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it really is, especially if they're family. I think that's a challenge, and that's because of the fear of abandonment that we all carry. Because we really, I don't know, I don't think I know anybody that doesn't have some fear of abandonment, whether it's from school, whether it's from relationships. Um, Abandonment seems to certainly be a big one for all of us human beings here. So when it comes to family, that's one of the biggest ones that feeds into that, I think, in terms of fear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
often
Well,
they can affect your direct surroundings too, right? I mean, if it's family that is in the city or or if you're living with family or whatever, and there's something that you need to bring forward, it can be a little nerve-wracking, right?
mhm.
For people to do that because it might change stuff. And we don't like change because that's a human thing. We just don't like change. So,
Mhm.
mhm.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest piece when there's a possibility of it having a direct impact on your day-to-day experience, it can be a lot harder too, right? And
Definitely.
knowing, the way that somebody is going to respond, and we can't control, no matter how
No.
nicely we think we did it or how tactful we think we are or whatever. If, we can't control how the other person is going to receive it. And so, if we know that something is going to have an impact, it's hard, right? And, we don't always have the ability to know how we're gonna navigate that change,
Hmm.
right?
I know I've had numerous clients that they've been in like with toxic parents, stuff like that, and they've had to like cut them out of their lives basically, and that is like super difficult, right? Because you're like that. Parents are those one things that you think is like unconditional love, and it's not always. right? It depends on the person, depends on the situation. And that can be so rough because and we have so many expectations around that, around the parent-child relationship. You know, it's challenging. Yeah, you and I hear a lot when it comes to this stuff from our clients and whatnot, eh? So
Yeah.
that's certainly that's pretty yeah, it's an interesting we have an interesting job, we do. And here's our best chatters supporting each other again. Awesome.
Aw. You guys are so awesome.
Yeah, we do have the best chatters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Gerald's got pretty awesome chatters too, but you know, there's a lot of crossover, so I think we all have good chatters.
You know, it's interesting too, though, and one of the things I do talk to my clients about a lot, right? Because we do have a lot that is outside of our control, right? And coming
Absolutely.
back to this idea of fear and realizing this testing of our resolve. And one of the things I come back to so often is, you know, this idea of trusting ourselves, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the fallout is going to be. We can't play the what if game because we could play it for all eternity and still not know how it's
Exactly.
going to play out or what things are going to look like. But can we trust ourselves that we'll figure it out when the moment happens, be able to trust our guides, to know what we need to do to take care of ourselves in the moment?
Yeah.
Because if we can do that, we can navigate anything.
It's,
Right?
you know, often it's trusting ourselves. That's the
Exactly.
hardest thing.
Exactly.
You
So
know,
if we can work on that, the rest of it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to share something actually, because I posted this on my Facebook page, and it's relevant to what we're talking about right now. This was, and it's not mine. So this is, there we go. The one thing about this, though, the you know, all of this that's in my control is in your control if you're aware of it. So if you're not aware, and that's where, you know, getting to know ourselves can help with that. But again, what is it really control? I mean, that's the big thing. That is part of that discussion. Is it really in your control? Is control the right word for that? So that's the other thing. But you know, I always talk about the we only have control over our own actions and reactions. We don't have control over other people's actions and reactions. You could use manage. We can only manage our actions and reactions. We can't manage other people's actions and reactions.
Yeah.
As opposed to control. Manage is, I don't know, softer or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, control is such an interesting concept anyway, right? Because it's really just perceived anyway, right? Across the board. And so, I mean, even control of our own stuff, we perceive we have control of it, and yet, you know, we don't even understand the machinations of the mind half the time.
exactly.
Right? To really, you know, understand what we have control over and what we don't within ourselves. So it's a very interesting, you know, perception that we think we have.
And yet we have such a fear of losing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite a conundrum we have with all that. I guess that's, you know, that's why they talk about having the like not having like the detachment from the outcome.
Yeah.
Right? Because then that creates the lack of need for control. So
Yeah.
but We
talk
all
about
want things to go a certain way. So we all want an outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about surrender in the spiritual journey, and it's such a difficult concept when we really break it down, right? And that's why things like in the Sufi journey, we talk about no praise, no blame, right? And what that actually means and the way that
Yeah.
plays out and things like that. And why it's so important a concept in the journey, because again, when we talk about this idea of, testing our resolve to live in the energy of love, it's
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not anymore about an outcome, right?
No,
It doesn't
then it's
matter
process.
how it goes anymore. It's the journey, it's the living, it doesn't matter what comes of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So Michelle says technically it's in our control because of karma. But in my experience, karma waits until we are truly ready to receive our lessons. And it stings. It can. It can. We're supposed to learn what it's like to feel things. So, we can feel it for
Mhm.
sure. And I mean, we say it's in control, it's karma, but we're not in control this lifetime for some of it. Right?
Yeah.
Some of it is stuff, karma that we've gotten from other lifetimes. So we don't really have control over getting it from last lifetime because it's going to come forward. Right? We might have had control of it in that lifetime about not bringing it forward, but if we've got it, we've got it. We got to do something with it. So we have to pay it off. So when that lesson comes, we're going to learn it. Because justice, learning lessons. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that not all karma stings when we learn the lesson. I think that there's a whole range, right? There are ones that really, really sting, and there's ones that you go, yeah, that maybe wasn't the best choice. Maybe next time I'll do something different. And maybe it's not a sting per se. It might just be an uncomfortable moment with the thought of, geez, that hurt. Or I don't really like how that feels because I had that thing in my stomach. And you can learn the lesson. Speaking of faces, you can learn the lesson that way. Some of it's perception on how we choose to take it too. I think how we perceive what's happening. You're deep in thought, Jen.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about some of the experiences that I have had that have been ones that I know have been kind of, all right, I'm resolving some pretty heavy stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I I know that there have been different things that have been, like, all right, are you going to get it this time?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, all right, all right, we're going to try it again. Are you going to get it this time? Right? And it's like,
Yep.
okay, no, are you going to get it this time? Right? So I know that there is this kind of revisiting of issues that comes up, and there are different kind of levels in how I've experienced them at different points in my journey. But I also know that there have been some pretty heavy duty ones, um, that have been really, really hard. And I know that there have been some where, uh, I've been able to really sit back and kind of go, okay, like again, what you're saying about how we perceive it, right? Being able to go, okay, I could I could fight this, right? That part of me that, you know, wants what it wants,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Can fight this, or the part of me that can learn its lesson and let go and recognize that there is a lesson here, um, can accept that there is a lesson and that I need to take it humbly and
Mhm.
recognize that, all right, I'm gonna graciously bow out and back down and
Yeah.
receive it, right?
Yeah.
But that's really hard and that takes a lot of self-awareness, and that's not something that we readily do,
It's true.
right? And that's why often it stings.
And so I've been quite candid about having like 2 burnouts with management
Mhm,
jobs, and that's what led me to this path is having that. So they were trying to redirect me. The thing that I found fascinating about it was the lessons were almost the same in 2 different jobs. The situation became almost the same. It did not start off the same in each of them, but they became almost the same. And I think I was able to see it earlier, which is why the second one didn't take as long to resolve. But
mhm,
doing that forced me to take a step back and go, okay, I guess I got to throw out everything that I do know and do something different.
mhm,
And yeah, talk about scary
mhm.
when you've been doing the same thing for 20 some years, to step back and go, okay, this is totally different. I never pictured myself as an entrepreneur. And yet here I am, you know, 8 years later, I'm still an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
which I never would have thought. And yet that has obviously been my path. And so it was all a redirection. But fear along the way, oh, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And Fogo Pogo says, I think control and fear are 2 sides of the same coin.
Mhm,
More fear, the more control we feel we need. Yeah.
mhm.
And you see this with people with chronic illness. The more they start to lose control over their body or whatever's going on physically for them, the more they seem to need to feel like they need to control things around them a little bit more. Not everybody, but that I've seen that behavior in clients and stuff, is they have that need to control more because they
Yeah,
don't have as much control in one area, so they try to put more control in another area to feel like they have that. But it's all based on their fear. They're feeling fearful because they're losing control in the area that they are.
yeah. Yeah, we
So,
do that in a lot of areas of our life where we compensate for one thing in another,
mhm. And
right?
it's fear based, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think we've
yeah.
all done that for sure
Mhm.
at different times in our lives. Depending on what's happening and stuff for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's tough, right? When we talk about living in the energy of love, and we didn't even really get into it, but, what does that even really mean?
Hmm.
When we talk about trust and we talk about surrender and we talk about getting out of the way and letting that energy guide us and we talk about
Getting out of my own way is a tough one sometimes. I am a Leo.
Mhm. Right? But again, like, there's a reason why even, that idea of testing my resolve, but,
Hmm.
to live in the energy of love, like, there is that, you know, we talk about, because I talk with clients a lot about living intentionally, right? And how do we do that? And, to live in the energy of love, like, there's a very intentional process that goes with that. Right? It's, again, going back to what I was saying right at the very beginning with the card is it's not a wishy-washy thing. It's a very powerful, very strong thing. And there has to be a lot of intentionality with something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so testing my resolve, it's like, okay, this moment, moment of truth, right? Like this moment comes before me. And what am I going to do?
Hmm.
Right? Am I going to do the same stuff? that my mind is constantly telling me I'm going to do, that's fear-based, and that's, the same old files coming out going, "Oh, you got to do this."
Yeah.
Right? That are based in fear, that are based in control, that are based in, all the same lenses.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the same experiences, right? Or am I going to go, "Okay, no, I want to see this different. I want to have a new experience. I want to try something different."
Yeah.
Right? And what is that going to look like for me?
And of course, fear is always reactionary in how we respond to it, as opposed to responding, which is where we give ourselves that moment to think, okay, do I want to do this differently? Right.
Mhm.
So really, a lot of the healing journey, is about how do we lighten the trigger so
Yeah.
that we can respond instead of react. Because if we're always in reaction mode, we're always going to go to our same old thing, because there's no time in reaction mode to actually think about something different. So how do we move ourselves from reaction into response? And that's
Finding
big.
that pause.
Yeah, big part of the healing journey.
Mhm.
So before we end, we only got a couple of minutes left. I'm going to put a question out to all of you. What's your biggest fear? We all have them. What's your biggest fear? I'm going to say one. I'm going to say one that I have that is not even a conscious fear. It's heights. It's not a conscious one. I can think, oh, yeah, it's okay. We know this is sturdy. I'm not going anywhere. And I go and stand out there, and my body reacts. And
Mhm.
I'm like, so it's not a conscious, there's something subconscious around that for me.
Mhm.
And, of course, like the abandonment thing and all of those base fears too, of course.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and I tell this story, but I remember doing a virtual reality in a Best Buy one time, and I was climbing all over the place doing all kinds of stuff, and then at one moment, I'm on the top of this massive skyscraper, and the guy is, like, in Best Buy talking to me, and he's like, "Just
Yeah.
step off," and I'm like, "I can't. I
Yeah.
can't. I know I'm standing in Best Buy, and I know I can just step forward, and I'm perfectly fine because I'm standing on the floor in Best Buy." And my brain is going, "Oh, hell no, you are not stepping."
You are not stepping off that skyscraper.
And I know. So, I'm in Best Buy,
Yes.
but I still was not stepping off the skyscraper.
Yep.
Oh,
Well,
man.
I remember the first time I realized I had that. I had never had a fear of heights. And I went to Lake Placid to the ski jumps there. It
Mhm.
was shortly after the Olympics. I'm showing my age, but the high ski jump during the Olympics, they have those built there. So we went there, and I wasn't thinking of it because I didn't even realize that I had a thing. It was a thing. And I go out on like the platform, right?
Mhm.
I was all of a sudden like, the whole thing is moving. The whole thing is moving. Why is this moving? And I said to my mom, why is this moving the way it is? And she's like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
It's like, it's moving. So it's totally an unconscious fear, you know?
Mhm.
And we can't deal with unconscious fears until we bring them out and acknowledge that that's what it was, because I didn't know
Mhm.
what it was. So you start to work through it.
Yeah.
And Gerald says one of his biggest fears is being forgotten.
And I
Gerald,
like Michelle's response.
I agree. You absolutely are completely unforgettable, Gerald. Gerald.
Mhm.
There is no way anyone will forget you.
Mhm.
Mhm. Michelle says, heights get real when you're literally out on a limb. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And Fogo Pogo, showing the real me. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's a true, you know?
it is.
It, uh, it
Mhm.
definitely is. Thunderstorms, though, I gotta say, love thunderstorms.
I used to, but we've had power outages after thunderstorms for the last few times, and I'm like starting to get a little tired of them.
Don't love the power outages, but love the thunderstorms. It was in the other room, and I was looking out the window, and a crash of lightning came down right in front of the window into the front yard,
Oh
and I
my.
was just like, "Wow." I
They're
was glad I
certainly powerful, aren't they?
was in the house, but I was just like, "Wow." Love thunderstorms.
Yeah. Yeah, we had one hit a tree in our front yard, not the house we're in now, in one of our previous ones, and it was loud. It was like a
Mhm.
huge crack, and I was like, I think I was home alone too. I was like a teenager at the time. It was
Yeah,
quite, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, we want to thank you all
Mhm.
for coming and being vulnerable and authentic with us as
Yeah,
we
you guys.
try to be vulnerable, or we work towards being vulnerable and open with you,
Yes.
exposing our fears and our joys and our loves and our all of that
Yeah, because
beautiful
I
stuff.
thank you guys. You guys have helped me overcome, my fear, which I share with you guys of even just coming on and doing this,
Yeah.
and being seen, right? Bogo Pogo, you talk about being seen, right? And that was such a fear for me. And, you guys have been amazing at helping
Hmm.
me work through that. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a beautiful experience to be able to be here with you guys, and I'm gonna cry, right? To go through that and have that with all of you. So
For 50 episodes. Here's to
mhm.
50 more.
Mhm.
So thank you all for joining us. And we're wishing you tons of love and light, sending it all out there for the week ahead. And we will see you next week with Tarot Stash Gerald. Stay tuned for next week. See you soon, everyone.